Hello, my name is Bob. I'm the lead senior consultant for Abstract America. And with me today, it's Victor, who is also a senior consultant for Abstract America. And today we are covering Abstract America's Oracle EBS Financials Functional Training for General Ledger. And we're going to cover General Ledger Lesson 2. Victor, please take over and walk us through.
Hello everybody, my name is Victor, as Bob introduced, and welcome to lesson 2 of the Oracle Financial Functional Training. In lesson 1, we looked at a few concepts concerning the General Ledger module. We discussed what a ledger is. We also discussed the purpose of a ledger. We also talked about features and properties of a ledger. And so today we are going to move on to the next part, which is actually creating a ledger in the General Ledger module. So this is where all the information that we gathered in the last lesson comes to bear. Okay. So just as a reminder of what we did last time, we talked about some of the features that enable us to capture accounting information in the General Ledger. We talked about a chart of accounts. We also talked about currencies, and we talked about the accounting calendar. And those are the features that we need to create a primary ledger. And don't forget the sub-ledger accounting method. So that is what we are going to do today in the system, and we're going to create our own primary ledger. Now, we're going to start with the chart of accounts. And this is what our chart of accounts is going to look like. At the top here, we are going to have the chart of account structure. Remember, we discussed that a chart of account has a chart of account structure, which is divided into segments. So these are the segments that we are going to have. We are going to have a company segment, which is also going to be a balancing segment. We are going to have a natural account segment, which is going to contain the accounts, the natural accounts for our company, for our group of companies. We are going to have a division segment. And then we are going to have service line and program. We're also going to have two extra segments labeled Future 1 and Future 2. And why is this? This is to allow for future growth of the company. Perhaps if a company wants to add a different dimension to its reporting, remember we said chart of account reflects the kind of information that a company wants to see in its financial reports. So if our company wants to add a future segment that enables it to add a new dimension of reporting, maybe projects or products, it will be able to use these two empty value sets, empty segments, sorry. So each of these segments is going to have a value set that is associated with it. So the company segment is going to have a value set associated with it that will contain values which are companies. Same for the account, it's going to have a value set associated with it, which is going to have the list of natural accounts. The division segment is also going to have its own values, and this will be the same for all the other segments apart from the two future segments which are not going to have any values in the value set. Now, what are the steps that we are going to follow in creating our chart of accounts? First, we are going to create the value sets. Then we are going to create the chart of account structure. Give me 1 second, let me change something. Okay, so first we are going to create our value sets. And we are not going to put in any values in the value sets first. We're just going to create them. we are going to create them, think of them as empty boxes that we are going to fill in with values later. Then we are going to create the chart of account structure or organization structure, as I told you that we can call it, which is this part. And then we are going to define the segments of the chart of account structure, which is the company, account, division, service line, program, future 1 and future 2. We are going to define those segments and qualify them. After we do that, we are going to attach the value sets to the segments, or technically we are going to attach the value sets to the chart of account structure with each value set to its own segment. And then finally, we are going to insert values in the value sets and qualify those values. There's some few terms perhaps which you are seeing which are foreign, the qualifying, the Flexfield qualifiers, and the segment qualifiers. I think instead of explaining them to you right now, it's going to be better if we see them in the system and see how they impact the way we do our chart of account structure. So let's go direct to the system, Oracle instance. So this is the login page of the Oracle instance. I am going to use credentials that I already have, but to do the creation of the chart of account structure. Once you log in, this is an example of a page that you may see. What you see here are called responsibilities, and we are going to discuss all this. So right now, don't be too troubled about the meaning and all that. But basically, responsibilities are the ones that allow us to perform our different tasks in the Oracle instance. In order to accomplish our task of creating a ledger, we are going to use a general ledger responsibility, which is this one over here. And let me say also, as we continue, as we advance into the lessons, we are also going to create our own responsibility, which we are going to use to access the ledger that we are creating right now. So the ledger creation options are universal for the general ledger responsibilities. So you can create a general ledger using any general ledger responsibility on the instance, and then you can assign that ledger to that same responsibility or another general ledger responsibility that you wish. But the options to create the general ledger are universal. Right. So let's proceed. So let's go back to our slides a bit. I don't think I put the navigation there, but anyway, I want us to see again the steps that we said we are going to follow. So first, we are going to create the value sets in the general ledger using the general ledger responsibility. So to create a value set, this is the navigation. You go to the general ledger responsibility right there. It will launch this menu. These are the menu options that you have. So the menu options that we need to use to create a value set is this. You go to Setup, Financials, Flexfield, Validation, and then Sets. Okay. So once you select that option, this is the window that is launched in the Oracle instance. So and this is the window that we use to create the value set. So what are the value sets that we want to create? Sorry for going back and forth, but I just want it to be clear. We want to create the company value. We want to create the company values, the value set that's going to be associated with the company segment. We want to create the value set that's going to be associated with the account segment, the division segment, and so have you. All right.
And just to clarify for anyone watching this, you've heard like Victor is referring to the system as instance. Yeah, that's the lingo. We call the system the instance or the environment. So you're gonna hear us talking about instance or environment a lot. So it's basically the system, the software system. Just wanted to make that clarification for everyone. Thank you. Please go ahead, Victor.
All right. So let's create the company value set. And the name that we are going to give this value set is has the name of our company. It's going to be the Maskani Group Company. So if we were creating a value set maybe for another company, that's maybe Safaricom, we are going to call it Safaricom. Safaricom under the company value set, we can call it Safaricom companies, something like that. All right. Here we are going to have a description. Another thing I might want to mention at this point is in the Oracle instance, when you're filling out these fields, some fields are highlighted as yellow and others are highlighted as white. So you can see this one is yellow and the others which are white, like this description field. Yellow fields are mandatory fields, so you have to put in something in that field. White ones are optional, so remember that. So description, we can make it the same as the value set name. Okay. List of values. List type. Sorry, we can just leave it as a list of values. This just shows that in the value set we are going to have a list of the values that I described that are going to be the names of the company. All right. This second part, the format validation. Under this format type, let me take you back to a slide. So remember I told you that the values are also represented in numerical values. So Maskani Developers is company 001. Maskani Property is company 002. The cash account is account 1000. The fixed assets is 1100. So this part, it allows us to select whether we want those representations to be only numbers. So if we select these numbers only, so let's first see. We can select what kind of values we can enter, those representations of the company or the account. So we are going to use this character type. And then we can select whether we can only enter numbers or we can only enter in uppercase, or we can only enter this option for zero field numbers, which is also another option for numerical values. So we are not going to specify any type of character type. We're just going to leave it like that, and once we leave it that way, we are able to enter numbers or alpha or the alphabet characters. Okay, this field for maximum size. Again, this enables us to select the number of characters we can enter for this representation of the company. I hope this is clear. So in our own implementation, we are going to label the companies as 001, 002. If we had another one, it could be 003. So for the maximum number of characters, we are going to select 3, which enables us, that is for the company value set, which will enable us to enter 3 characters like this. So 001, 002. If we are doing for the account, excuse me, we are going to use six values. So for example, under cash account, we are going to label it as 001,000. So maximum number of values in that field, we are going to select 6. And thus, the maximum number of values are totally dependent on the company. It may reflect, what the company thinks is going to happen in the future. If they think they're going to add more companies here, so if we only selected one, we'll only have a range of 1 up to 9. If we only selected a maximum number of characters as 1, then we are only able to enter as Maskani developers as just 1, or Maskani properties as just 2. If this group of companies wanted to add another company here, they can only go up to 9. But with this, they can go up to 999. Same applies for accounts. The more the number of maximum characters for this, the higher the range of values you can enter. Okay, so I hope that's clear. All right, so for our company value set, we are going to enter maximum size is 3. And for value validation, validation is something that happens in the back end. It's basically checking that the information you entered is correct for the window or for the field. So we are going to leave that as independent. So we have created that Maskani group company value set, and it's okay, and we can save that. Okay, so the next value set that we are going to create, you can press this button to enter new values. This is the new button at the top here. So the next value set we are going to create is the value set that is associated with the natural account segment. So we're going to call this Maskani group account. We can leave the description as that too, Maskani group account. We also leave it as a list of values. For the format type, we leave it as character. Maximum size, as we said, we are going to use 6. We can select numbers only, but let's not do that because we might need to enter an account that's not in numerical characters. We might want alphabet characters in the future. So let's leave it like that at the moment. So we can save that. The next value set that we are going to create is the Maskani group division. The description, which is optional but is recommended to enter. we can do that. The maximum size we are going to use for this is 3. And let's leave all the other options they are. Save that. Create the next value set. I need to remind myself what it is. Service line. The maximum size we're going to use for this is 2. Let's save that. Let's create a new value set. I'm going to call Scani Group program. Maximum size we are going to use for this 3. All right, let's create our future value sets, which are going to be empty. We're going to use 3 maximum size. Let's say that, and finally let's create the last value set. Maximum size of 3, and save that. So so we have created our 7 value sets, and which are going to fall under this segment of that account structure. Okay. So we are not going to put any values in the value set yet, and when we are done with this all these steps, I am going to explain why perhaps it makes sense to do this implementation in this way. You might have thought maybe, oh, we can create the chart of account structure first, and then we create the value sets, and then put the value sets in the values, and then attach that. But I will explain why it makes sense to do this in this step. All right. So the next thing that we are going to do is create our chart of account structure, which is this part over here. We are going to create this structure and then define these segments. So let's go back to the system. So we have already created and saved the value set, so we can close this window. So in the version of the Oracle Financial that we're using, we have this Java-based window. So this menu is the same as the one you will see over here. It's just that this one launches on using a Java plugin. So creating the chart of account structure. We are going to go, the navigation is setup, financials, Flexfield, key, and then segments. Okay, so I hope you followed that, and I can do it again for you. And once you select those options, the navigation is also shown at the top here. So you will go to, you can collapse the menu again. So it is setup, financials, Flexfield, key, and then segments. So this is the window that launches once you follow those navigation steps. Okay, so to create the chart of account structure, we use what is called the accounting flex field. This accounting flex field belongs to the general ledger application. Module and application are terms that can be used interchangeably. So in this window, this first field, which application are we using? It's general ledger. So you can come here and select this button is used to find, and in this find field over here, you can use, these are called wildcards, so you can just enter the first few letters of the application or the module you're looking for, and all these are also different applications. Anyway, so we are looking for the general ledger application or module, which is with the application we are creating the general our ledger in. When you click find, it will bring these options. So it is general ledger, and the flex field that we are using to create chart of account structure is the accounting flex field. So select this option over there by clicking OK. Now, once you select that, these are other chart of account structures that have been created within this instance. You can see all of them, they have different types of names, but we want to create our own, a new one. Okay, so click inside here in any one of these lines, and then this new button will be activated. Select new, and you can enter the name of your chart of account structure in the new field that has been created. Okay. All right, so just give me 1 second while I So what are we going to call our chart of account structures? We're going to call it Mascani Group COA. COA is chart of account structure. Whatever you enter here is duplicated in this. And for the description, you can use the same thing. And for the view name, you can also use the same thing. So this is the name of our chart of account structure. You can also see under this header over here, we have structure. So these are the names of the chart of account structures. Okay. So once we have already defined the name of the chart of account structures, what do we need to do? Remember, going back to our slides, after creating the chart of account structure, which we have done, which is basically giving the name of the chart of account structure, it belongs to Mascani Group of Companies, so it's the Mascani Group COA. We need to define the segments. So we have created, what we have done is like we have created this whole box, but now we need to go and separate it into these segments. Okay, so let's Let's go back to the system. So to do that, you select this button here, okay? And this launches this window, and this is where you enter the different segments that are going to be in your chart of accounts, right? Now, this first field over here, number, is just a sequencing field. So it's just basically like labeling 1, 2, 3, 4. You can decide to enter the first line as 10, and this works the same way as excuse me, we were describing the maximum number of characters allowed in the when we were defining the value set. This just gives you a wider range of values to play with. So if you can use 10, 20, 30, or you can use 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter. Okay. So what is the name of our first segment? It is the company segment. Middle prompt is the same as the name, so it will duplicate over there. So column. What does this column field show? It just shows, sorry. It just shows the way these segments will appear once you create your chart of account. So this is column 1, this is column 2, this is column 3. So if we made account column 1, it will be the first one here. It will be this, and then we made company column 2, it will come to this second column. And this will also affect the way the combinations that we described appear. So if we made account column 1, then this combination would start with 1100, and then it will go to 001 and then 10. So you can make it segment 1. That's what we're going to select. So company is segment 1. So here is where you select the value set that is going to be associated with this segment. And let's not do that right now. We can continue and create all the segments, and then we are going to come back to the value set. As you can see, this is a white field, and as we said, white fields are not compulsory. So you can create this chart of account structure and define the segments without associating it with any value set. But then again, in order to associate it to a ledger, you have to associate it with the value set because it won't be complete. But you can basically create the chart of account structure and define the segments without attaching a value set to it. So let us first create the segments, and then we are going to attach the value sets and explain why we are doing it in this order. So line 20 is going to be the account. The middle prompt is the same. This is going to be segment 2. Segment 2. Line 3 is going to be our division segment. Okay, there. So this is going to be segment 3. So it takes that. Our fourth segment is going to be the service line. This is going to be segment 4. Our fifth one is program. This is going to be segment 5. Okay. Then This is our future one. Future one. It's going to be segment 6. And future 2. It's going to be our segment 7. There's no space. Okay, so we have created, we have defined all our segments, and we can save our work that we have done up to now. So now let's go to this value set field. You see this button here, it shows that there's a list of values that you can select from. So what value set do we want to associate with the company segment? We want to associate the Mascani group value set, right? So we are going to enter Mascani there. You can use the wildcard and find. So here you can already see all the value sets that we created in the system. Okay. So the one that we want to associate with this company segment is Mascani group company, right? For the account, we want to associate the Mascani group account. Okay. For the division, same thing. We want to associate the Mascani group division. And by the way, what I am doing is I'm just typing part of the name and clicking the tab button. It will automatically give you that list, and you can select the value set that the correct value set. So for the service line segment, we want the service line value set. For the program segment, we want the Mascani group program value set. For the future segment, we remember we created a future value set also. So I think there's somebody else who did their own implementation, and they also have their own future value sets. But ours is these two that are in caps at the top. So for future 1, you select that one, and for future 2, you select that. Okay, so let's go back to our PowerPoints. See how far we have gone. So we have created the value sets. We have created, so the value sets are these. So this is the Mascani group of company value set, Mascani group account value set, like that. We have created the chart of account structure, which is the Mascani group COA, and we have defined the segments in that chart of account structure, which are the company account division service line program, future 1 and future 2. We have also what we have not done yet is we have not qualified the segments. So let's go back to the system. How do we qualify this segment? So let's select the first line and click on this button here, Flexfield Qualifiers. So we have 6 types of Flexfield qualifiers, as you can see them listed here. We have cost center, natural account segment, balancing segment, intercompany segment, management segment, and secondary tracking segment. Now remember, when we were discussing the chart of accounts, we said that there are two segments that are mandatory in order to create a chart of accounts in Oracle Financials. One is the balancing segment, and the other is the natural account segment. So this window is what you use to identify those segments to the system. So here, what did I do? All right, let's do this quickly. I had not saved I thought I had saved the value sets. Sorry for that. It's important to save your work. Service line. This should be program. Here we have future. And here we have future. Okay. So remember we said that the company segment, best practice, is the one that is assigned as the balancing segment. So when the system is checking journals to validate, it will check whether they are balanced using this company segment to see whether there's a credit for the company segment and there's an equal debit for the same company segment. So we say this is the balancing segment. So how do you identify this company segment as the balancing segment? You go to Flexfield Qualifiers and you select this balancing segment. This attribute is used to identify the balancing segment, like that. Okay. So we have now identified the company segment as the balancing segment for our chart of accounts. So you can close that. The other mandatory segment, yes, please, yes. The other mandatory segment is the natural account segment. The natural account segment is the one that will contain the value set that has the list of accounts, cash, fixed assets. And how do you identify it to the system? It's the same way, Flexfield Qualifiers. Then you go and identify this as the natural account segment. And we will see the implications of this once we start entering the values in the value set. So save our work. Now, those are the two mandatory segments. So basically we can save our chart of account structure and proceed to enter the values in the value set. Would like to take a short break, then we'll proceed from there. Okay, so we had left from qualifying our company segment and our account segment as the balancing and natural account segments, respectively. So now our chart of account structure has met all the conditions that it needs to be validated at the moment. But as you have seen, there are other Flexfield qualifiers that you can use to and assign to different segments. So we have the intercompany segment. You can identify a segment as an intercompany segment. We don't have one. Perhaps we are going to add one in the future as we continue. And this these qualifiers, these segments serve different purposes. So for instance, in the intercompany segment, it is used when you are doing transactions between two related companies. So for example, if the companies that we are using under our enterprise, Maskani Developers and Maskani Property Management, if they do a transaction, the intercompany segment will be used to identify the two companies that are doing the transaction, and it will list the values of those two companies. So for the line for Maskani Developers, and the intercompany segment will list Maskani Property Management, and for the line that involves Maskani Property Management, the intercompany segment will list the Maskani Developers. So that is the function of the intercompany segment. We also have others, cost center segment. It is used to identify different kinds of, like a cost center, a place where revenue and costs are incurred, maybe like a regional office or something like that. And we also have management segments. We are going to look at management segments when we are doing data access steps, and it is used to control information that is viewed by different users. And you can use one segment as a management segment. But the natural account segment and the balancing segment cannot be used as management segments. Okay, I mean, I think we are going too far into that topic, but just have a high level understanding of what these segments mean. So we have identified the two mandatory, we have qualified the two mandatory segments, the balancing segment and the natural account segments. So we are good up to that point, and we can save our work. So we can also close this window. Now, there's also one more thing that we need to do, and perhaps I need to explain this field here, segment separator, what it is. So what is it? My English is becoming bad. Let's go back to the slides. So when you look at this account combination, you have 001 dot 1100.10. So a segment separator is basically this dot here, this period here, that exists between the different segments of the account combination. And Oracle lets us choose between different kinds of segment separators. So we can have this. So if we choose this pipe, we are going to have 001 and then a straight line, then 1100 straight line, then 10. Or we can choose a dash. So we're going to have 001 dash 1100 dash 10. But for our implementation, we're going to use the period. And you can also see down here that you can have a custom one that you want. So this is all up to the liking of the accountants in the company who are going to be using the system. So you as a financial consultant, your job is just to tell them, oh, these are the options you have, and they'll pick the one that they feel works best for them. So we're going to use the period. All right. Another thing that we need to do, we are going to do it right now, although we can do it later before we specify other ledger options, is allowing dynamic inserts. This also is a topic that we are going to look at separately, dynamic insertion and cross-validation and account combinations. So I can explain it at a high level. Dynamic insertion basically allows you to use any account combination on the fly without having to pre-validate that account combination. So let's go back again to our PowerPoint slide. So if we don't have dynamic, after you have completed your whole ledger and you're entering journals, if you don't have dynamic insertion on, to enter the first, let's say it's a fresh ledger, you haven't entered any information before, you'd have to manually validate this combination 001, 1100, and 10. You have to tell the system directly that this is a valid combination that you are allowed to use, this account combination. The same for this 001, 1000, and 20. But once you do, once you allow dynamic insertion, these account combinations are created on the fly because these values already exist in your chart of accounts. So Oracle will validate this account combination automatically for you, and you don't need to do any manual validation in order to be able to enter this account. Okay, and the reason, and we are going to see the reason why we need to allow dynamic insertion at this point once we go to specify the other ledger options when we're creating our ledger, and it has something to do with the retained earnings account, which we have to specify before we can complete our ledger setup. So we are going to allow dynamic insertion at this point, and then we are going to freeze our Flexfield definition. So freezing our Flexfield definition means it's just saving. We are going to save this account. We are going to save our chart of accounts structure, which is the definition. And anytime you want to make changes to the chart of account structure, including the segments, you have to unfreeze the Flexfield definition, make the changes, and then freeze it again. All right. So once you select this freeze Flexfield definition button, you'll see this warning, and it says make sure you don't want to make any more changes to the segment definitions. And so are we sure you want to do this? Yes, I believe we have done everything that is required, so we can do that, and then we can save our work. Once we save, you'll see this pop up here, or a note says it's compiling. Compiling means basically it's validating and checking that all the requirements of the chart of account structures have been met, and it's a valid chart of account structure. It doesn't have any errors. It was compiled successfully. Okay. All right. So we have created our chart of account structure. We have defined the segments, and we have qualified the mandatory segments. So we can close that window and go back to our PowerPoint. So we have done step 1, we have done step 2, we have defined segments and qualified them, and we have already also attached value sets to the segments. So what is remaining? We need to insert values in the value set, and then we need to qualify those values. So let's go back to the system. And collapse this. So in order to enter values in our value sets, this is the navigation we need to follow. Go to Setup, Financials, Flexfield, Key, and then Values. All right. So we can find here, this is the window that launches once you follow those navigation steps. We can find our values by value set. We have value sets. We have the Mascani group value sets. We have the Mascani group division and all that. So we can find values by our value sets. We don't have values in our value sets yet, but once we find the value set, we can then go and add the values in there. So we can use that option, or we can use the key flex field. and that is what I am going to use. So remember, when we were creating the chart of accounts, we created it in the general ledger application using the accounting Flexfield. Okay, so those are the parameters that I'm going to use to find the value sets and then enter the values in them. So I can actually maybe demonstrate both ways so that you can see the results that come up. So application is going to be general ledger using the key Flexfield. Title, it was accounting Flexfield. The structure, what was the name of the chart of account structure? It was Maskani group. So you can specify one segment that you want to find, or you can just click the find button and you'll be able to see all the segments that we defined. So if we click find, we have the company segment right there. You can see the structure is Maskani Group COA, and this is the company segment, and this is the value set that is associated with the company segment. So you can see here values under the company segment. So when you enter these values, they're going to be going into the Maskani Group company value set. And you can click here. Once you click the down arrow, you will be able to see the account segment. You'll be able to see the division segment. You'll be able to see the service line, program, future 1 and future 2. So these are all the segments that are associated with the Maskani Group chart of accounts, which are the parameters that we used to find the value sets. Okay, so let's go back. The navigation is the same, so I'll just click on values, and let's try to find them by value set. So you click that button. So suppose we want to find the Maskani Group company. So you Maskani Group, select that, okay, and find. So you'll see that the header part has changed. It is showing you values, although there are no values yet. It is showing you values by value set. So you'll see the name of the value set here, Maskani Group company. And when you click the down arrow, you can't see any other value set because you've specified this is the only value set that you want to find. But entering values from either window or either path is the same effect. Only that the other one you're able to see the multiple segments, and this one you only see one value set at a time. Okay, so let's start entering values.
And when you say down arrow, you mean the down arrow on your computer?
Yeah, the down arrow on the keyboard.
Just want to make sure that everyone understands that. All right, thank you.
All right. So this is in the value field, we are going to enter the numeric representation of the company. So what are the two companies that we have? Don't get tired of going back to the PowerPoint. I just want to make sure that you understand. So in that value field, we are going to enter this 001 and 002, okay? So the first line, 001. And remember how we said we specified the maximum number of characters that you can put in under the company. We said it was 3. So if you try to put 5, it won't let you, because the value 000 is longer than its maximum length of 3 characters. So that is what specification of the maximum characters does. We didn't specify that we can only enter letters. So we allowed letters and we allowed numeric characters. So here we can also, although we are doing numeric characters, we can also enter letters as long as there are three characters. So So it allows you to enter letters. So we're doing 001, let's go. 001. And what's the description? The first company is Maskani Developers. Let's do lowercase. Maskani Developers. Okay. The second one is 002, and it is Maskani Property. To confirm something. Okay, we're going to use Maskani Property Managers. Or we can just keep it Maskani Property. I think that. All right, let's do Maskani Property Managers and Maskani Developers. Just wanted to make sure. So you can see they are automatically enabled. It means you can use these values to post. You can use these values to enter transactions in journals. Okay. All right. So we can save that. So we've entered the values for our Maskani group value set. So what do we need to do? We need to enter values for our other value sets. So what's the next value set? I went to get here. I went to this find button. Okay, you have to select this field here, which is where the value set name is displayed. Click on the find button and enter the value set.
Victor, I don't think you are showing where you are at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, back there. Yeah, okay.
Is it good now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Sorry for that. Okay. So I was saying to find the next value set, select this field where the value set is shown, where the value set name is shown, and then click the find button. And this window will pop up, and you can enter the next value set in which you want to enter values. So we want to enter values in the account. Maskani account. Okay. You can find, and it brings out the value set, which is empty. So we specified a maximum of 6. And so let's start with the various types of accounts that we are going to have for our list of natural accounts. So we are going to have we're going to have a cash account, which we're going to give a value of 1,000, 1,000 cash. Then we are going to do receivables. Hold on. Which we are going to give a value of 1,200. Or we need to do fixed assets also. Fixed assets is going to be 1,100. Don't worry about the sequence. Oracle will just sort it out once we save. So this is going to be fixed assets. We're going to have payables. Then we are going to have our retained earnings account. The 4,000 series is going to be our revenue, sales and revenue account. And finally, we are going to have expense account under the 5,000 series. Now, this is a very truncated list of natural account values that I have put here. We are going to add many more to represent the various activities that these companies are going to be taking part in. But I just wanted to enter this main, I would say the main accounts in this lesson, and then as we continue, we are going to add other values in this value set. There's no fixed convention into what type of accounts fall under what number series, although in a lot of companies they do this. Asset accounts fall in the 1000 series. So cash is an asset, fixed assets is an asset. They fall under the 1000 series. So they start with 1. Payables usually start with 2, and then we have the retained earnings account. Retained earnings account should start with a 3, and then sales and revenue will fall under the 4, and expense will fall under the 5. But it's not a hard and fast rule, and has nothing to do with Oracle. It's just accounting convention and maybe the practice that they are used to. So let's save that. And okay, so let's go back first. We are encountering an error. Let's first read this error and see what it says. It says, please enter a valid value for the account type segment qualifier using the segment qualifiers pop-up window. Okay, so let me take you first back to the slides. In our steps, we said we have done all this, and now we are inserting values, and we said we have to qualify the values with segment qualifiers. So let's go back to the system. Okay. So what does that error mean? When you come here, so you're under this tab, values effective, so it shows the actual values and shows whether they are enabled, and you can determine the date from which you want this value to be used. You're not going to do that, and you can see it's an optional field because it's white. It's not mandatory. So when you click this other tab here that shows values, hierarchy, and qualifiers, this window or this tab allows you to do different things. But I'm going to focus first on the error that we found, which is you need to qualify these values. So if you click here in the qualifiers field, this Flexfield launches, and in this Flexfield we have 5 segment qualifiers, and as you can see, the fields are yellow, meaning that they are mandatory. Okay, so the first one, allow budgeting, we're going to leave it as yes. Allow posting, we're going to leave it as yes. All these have functions. Allow budgeting allows you to use this value, this account, in creating budgets. Allow posting, it allows you to post journals containing this value. account type. This is the one that I want to focus on. As we said, the accounts in the value set, in the natural account segment and in the natural account value set, they fall under the 5 main types of accounts, which is assets, liabilities, retained earnings, revenue, and expense. So we need to qualify each of these values as one of those types of accounts. Okay, so let's close this. The first one is cash. We know cash is an asset. Okay, so when we come here, we allow budgeting, allow posting, account type, cash is an asset. So you come here, select asset, okay, click OK. Receivables. We know receivables is also an asset. So you come here, yes, yes, account type, select asset, okay, fixed assets. Account type is in the name. It's also an asset. Okay. Payables. Payables are what you owe to other people, so it's a liability. It's what you owe people, so liability, account type. Okay. Retained earnings. Retained earnings, it falls under ownership. Ownership. Retained earnings is what, after you close the period, goes back to the money that's owed, the shareholding of the investors. So that's the ownership of the investors or the owners of the company. So it's an ownership type of account, right? That's how you see it, ownership or stock holding. That's retained earnings. Sales and revenue. Account type is in the name. It's a revenue type of account. Okay. Expense. Sorry, I don't know why my computer keeps doing that. Expense is an expense type of account. So let's save that. Now, when we save, we don't get the error now because we have qualified these values. So now I want to show you something else. Let's go back to the company segment. All right. COA. Company. Under the Mascani Group segment, the company segment, we also have that field to qualify the values, the segment values qualifiers. But when you click here, it doesn't give you the other 3 options, which were account type, and I think the other one was third-party control. I can't remember the other one, but you're going to go back and look at it. So how is this so? The only way that Oracle was able to know that we are supposed to qualify the values in the natural account segment as by account type also is because when we were defining the segment, we defined it as a natural account segment. So Oracle immediately knew that in the value set that is attached to that segment, the values that are going to be put in there are going to be accounts. And those accounts needs to be placed under the 5 types of accounts, which are assets, liabilities, expense, and assets, liabilities, expense, revenue, and retained earnings. But Oracle knows that this is not a natural account this is not a natural account segment, it's a balancing segment in the company. So even for the other segments, as we enter values, we are going to have this star, but we are not going to have to qualify them as by account type, because Oracle knows that that's not the natural account segment. So let's go back to the slides, and this is why now we created our chart of accounts using these steps. Okay, so we created the value sets first, and then we created the chart of accounts so that we can assign these value sets to the chart of accounts. And okay, so we created value sets, we created the chart of accounts, and we defined the segments and qualified the segments. Then we attached the value sets, so that when we attach the value sets to the segments, Oracle will know the kind of values that are going to go into that value set, and we are able to qualify those values when we are entering them. So I hope that makes sense. All right. So we have explained that. Now need to enter values for the other value sets. So division. This is the value, the division value set. We're going to have 100. It's going to be industrial. 101 is going to be retail. 102 is going to be single family homes. I'll try to explain also how these values are linked to each other, so that you can understand, I mean, like the business nature of the companies that we are creating. So 103 is going to be apartments. So we have two companies, one is developers and the other one is property management. So the developers, maybe we can say they construct buildings. So they have a division that deals with constructing industrial plants, like say factories or warehouses. They have a division that deals with constructing retail buildings, maybe like, let's say, malls or shopping centers and stuff like that. They have a division that deals with constructing single family homes, like standalone homes for one family, and they have another division that deals with constructing apartment blocks. And the same for property managers. They have expertise in managing industrial plants. They have expertise in managing retail buildings. They have expertise in managing, like, say, a development of single family homes, and they have expertise in managing apartments. So that's the idea behind these divisions. So for this, we can also go to the qualifiers, and we'll see once you select these qualifiers, you don't have the account type or the third-party control segment qualifiers, because Oracle knows that this is not a natural account segment. So okay, I mean, we don't have to do all of this. For this one, it was mandatory for the natural account segment, but let's just do it and get it over with. So we can save the values for that. And let's go to the next value set, which is going to be group service line. So for the service line, we have maximum characters is 2. Give me a second while I confirm the values that I'm supposed to put in there. So this is going to be the operations. 20 is going to be human resource. You can do HR and payroll. 20 is going to be sales. My memory is bad. I need to confirm again. Yeah, sales and marketing. Sales and marketing. And the last one is going to be finance. Okay, so we can qualify this too, but we don't have to. Actually, I'm not going to. You can just say when you see for this one, you're not going to get an error. All right, let's go to the next one. Sorry, you have to select this field and then find. Mascani group program. Okay. Okay. Let me confirm the values for this, and I'm going. This segment might seem a bit out of place, but I'm going to explain why we have it. All right. So we're using 3 values for this one. I'm going to add a default value. Default. Then we're going to have 001, which is going to be.
We are not able to see what you're putting in, Victor.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So I put in the first value is going to be default. We're going to see why. Then we have graduate. Then we have 002. We have bachelor's. Then 003. We have diploma. So the idea behind this field is that this Mascani group of companies is going to have another operation in India, and this operation in India is going to be a school. So I plan to use the same chart of account structure. Once we create the chart of account structure for that ledger, we are going to create another ledger for that operation, and so that is why we have this program segment. But when we are dealing with the 2 companies here that we are going to use, the developers and the property management, we don't want to affect to use any of this. So that's why I created, because those transactions are not going to fall under any of this description, the graduate, the bachelor's, or the diploma. That's why I created this value, the default value. So we are going to be using that default value for the transactions we do with the Mascani developers and the Mascani property management. So don't let it confuse you too much. That's the idea behind that segment or that value set. Okay, so I believe the next one is future, and remember we said these ones are going to be empty. It's just for creating room for future growth in case we want to add new segments for a new reporting dimension for our chart of account structures. Okay, so we are done with the chart of accounts. We have, sorry, so we are done with our chart of accounts. We have, go back to the slides. We have created the value sets. We have created chart of account structure. We have defined segments and qualified them. We have attached the value sets and we have inserted values and qualified the values. So that is the first thing that we have done that helps us capture the accounting information. We also need to go to the next part, which is we need to deal with the currencies. And I think right now is a good time to take a small break. Okay, so we have already created our chart of accounts. Now we need to move on to the next C that we need to have in order to create our primary ledger, and that is the currency. So as we said, for the currency, we don't need to create, although there are times when you might need to create. Let's say when a new country comes up and you have operations there, you need to create the currency for that country. That's a new currency. But for currencies, they are preceded in the system. So all you need to do is to enable them. And you need to have a functional currency. You need to have foreign currency. The types of currencies are the functional currency, foreign currency, and the start currency. Okay. So we're going to go straight to the system, and the navigation that's going to enable us to enable currencies is the one there. We're going to go to setup, currencies, and then define. So let's go to the system. Setup, currencies, define. So now, if you do a search for all the currencies here, and to do a complete search, you can use the F11, Control F11. So if you press Control F11 on your keyboard, it will bring up all the currencies that are preceded in the system. So you see all these currencies. These are all the currencies that you can use in Oracle. Some may be preceded, maybe others have been defined by users, but those are the currencies. Okay. Now, okay. We have said that what we need to do, because we have already seen that the currencies exist there, is to enable the currency that we want to use. So for our implementation, we are going to enable 3 currencies. We are going to enable the Kenya shilling, we are going to enable the US dollar, and we are going to enable the Indian rupee, which are the currencies where we are going to, which are the currencies which we are going to be using. All right. So you can also check for currencies which have been enabled. All right. So how do you do that? You can click in this field, and then unselect this. Press F11. No. Sorry. Let me do this again. So you come here, press F11. This goes in the field goes into query mode. When you see it turns to blue instead of yellow, then you can come here and click this button. That way the system knows that you're querying for the currencies that have been enabled. And then after that, you press Control F11. So at the moment, these are the currencies that have been enabled. Okay, so we have Canadian dollar, we have the euro, you have the US dollar. So we can add the currencies that we are going to be using. So we're going to be using the Kenya shilling. Oh, hold on. No, that's not what we need to do.
I think it's there, but it's not. You just need to enable it.
Yeah. I think what I'm doing is, so what we need to do now is query for the Kenya shilling. Find the Kenya shilling. KES. Right. So it brings that up, and then we select this to enable it. Okay. We can save that. We can also go here and look for the Indian rupee. Brings that up because it's already in the system, and then we enable it. All right. So that's it for the currencies. Once we have enabled those currencies, we will be able to use them to enter journals, to capture accounting information in our implementation of the general ledger. You can save that.
Now, just a clarification to everyone. We are trying to have all these currencies, Indian rupees, US dollars, Kenya shillings, because our enterprise, Maskani Group, has business across different countries, all right? And as Victor will keep on showing you, you're gonna see why we are trying to, have all those currencies enabled. Just a little clarification to everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to our slides. All right, so we have enabled the currencies that we are going to use, and for the currency, it's not much work because, as you said, they are preceded in the system, and all we need to do is enable them to show that we want to use them to enter information. We are going to deal with start currency later, so don't worry about it for now. But you can also enable that to use it. All right, so let's go to the next C, which is the accounting calendar. Just as a reminder, what we need to do in order to create an accounting calendar for our group of companies, we need to select a year type, financial year type. We are going to use the calendar. It's much easier. We don't want to use the fiscal year. We're going to use the calendar year. And then we need to select the period type. And so let's go straight to the system. We are going to use the monthly period types, and we're not going to have an adjusting period. So it's just going to be 12 periods, okay? So let's go straight to the system, and the navigation to do this is the one there, setup financial calendar. No, let's use the Java one. All right, so setup financial calendar. So in order to define the financial year and the period type, we go to types first. Okay, so under calendars we have different options. We have types, accounting, transaction. So to define the financial year type, or to select, let me say to select the financial year type, and the period type, we need to go first to this menu option, which is the calendar types. Select that menu option. You can do a query, and you will see all the calendars that are already defined in the system. So F11, control F11, sorry. So these are all the calendar we have. So this field here shows the period type. This here shows the number of periods that are going to be in that year. Here is where you select the calendar type. You have calendar in the fiscal, and then this is the description of the accounting calendar that you're going to create. So if we had a description here that we are comfortable with, that matches the kind of calendar that we're going to use, that is, it has 12 periods, and the periods are months, and the year is a year type is a financial year. We can just select it when we're creating our accounting calendar. But for the sake of learning, let us define our own. Okay, so we're just going to click in here and select this new button. All right. So period type. Our period type is going to be a month. All right, and Oracle already knows what this kind of period types are. So you just need to write a month there. Oh, what happened?
You can use our naming convention like Maskani month. Please.
Okay, yeah. Let's use Maskani month, because that does not exist, the period type. So it knows it's a month, but we need to name it using our own naming convention. All right, thank you, Robert. How many periods are we going to have? 12. All right. And the year type, as we said, we are going to use the calendar. So it's going to run from January to December. If the financial year we wanted to run from May to April, we would have selected fiscal. What is going to be the description? Maskani group calendar. Okay. So we have defined a calendar type where we define the period type, the number of periods, and the year type, and we did the description. So we can save that. That calendar type has been defined. So the next step we need to do now is to create the actual calendar where we input the periods, the periods including the date changes. The best way to understand this is just by doing it. So we go to the second option under calendar. So it is calendar. The navigation is setup, financials, calendars, and then instead of types, accounting. So they're creating an accounting calendar. So our calendar name is going to be Maskani Group Maskani Group. The field doesn't allow me to add calendar, and I can just say Maskani Group calendar. All right. So that's the header part where we name the calendar, and we give a description for that calendar. So at this second header, periods, is where we define the periods. So what does this prefix mean? Our periods are going to be months. So January, February, March, and like that. And we're going to define the calendar for 2 years. So January 2017 to January 2018 to December 2019. So 2 years. So for the period, the first one is going to be January 18. Period type. Remember we defined period type when we were defining the calendar type. So when you come here, you get a list. So these are all the period types that are there. And here is our period type. I mean, like I said, if we had another period type that's the same as ours, which is the month, we can just select it here. Like we see we have month, but we did this for the sake of learning and to see how we define period types and calendar types. So we select our period type there, Maskani month. The year is going to be 2018. Going to the future. Quarter. January in the calendar year is in quarter 1, right? Number of the period is the sequence of the period in the financial year. So January is period 1. So when does this period run from? It's going to run from 1st January. Hold on, 1st Jan. Oh well. 1st Jan 2018. Then to 31st Jan 2018. Okay, let me correct something. For the prefix here, you can just write January, and then the name is going to be system generated from the information that you enter here. All right. So the prefix here is for the period name, kind of for the month, and then the Oracle is going to generate the name for the period using the prefix of that you've given and the year. So it has given January 2018. So this is where data entry comes in. So we have to do this for all the months for 2 years. Or it's still quarter 1. February is still quarter 1. Period number 2. 01 February 2018 to the 28th February 2018. Then we go to March. That's the prefix. Maskani month 2018. Excuse me.
I think, okay. I think you had hanged, kind of.
Oh, okay.
Good. No problem.
2018 goes to 31st. March, April, 2018. April is in quarter 2, period 4. Oh, sorry, it should be April. I pressed the 01 April.
I think April is Q2, number 4.
Oh, Q2. Having problems with data entry, so Q2, 4, April 2018. April goes up to the 30th, April 2018. May 2018. Still Q2, period number 5, 01. To 30th. I believe there's a shortcut that you can use for this. So if you press Shift F6, it copies all the values in the field above to the field below. So sometimes it's easier, you just go changing. This will go to Q3. This is period 7. This will be July. Oh, okay. I don't know why it doesn't let me. Maybe my shortcuts are not working. All right. Let me clear this. So that's 01 July 2018. My shortcuts are not working. I'm going to have to do it the hard way. July 2018, Q3, period 7, 01 July 2018 to 31st. Q3, period 8, 01 August 2018, 31st August 2018. September. September is still in Q3, period 9, 01 September 2018, 30th September 2018. So it refuses to take 31st September. November.
October.
Wow, I forgot my calendar. Thank you, Rob. Q4, period 10, 01 October 2018, 31st October 2018. 2018, quarter 4, period 11, 01, November 2018, 30th November 2018, December 2018. 1 December 2018. 31 December 2018. Okay. I know we said that we are going to do up to 2019, but I don't want you to keep watching me doing data entry. You can do it on your end. You can pause the lesson and do it up to 2019. We are going to, you can always add periods to our calendar, and we're going to do that as we go on, or I'm going to add it before we do the next lesson, because this is just how you do it. There's nothing complicated about it. So we have entered all the values in our calendar. You can save it. Now, you can validate your calendar. I already told you validation. The system checks whether every detail has been entered as it's supposed to. Maybe if there are overlapping dates, it will tell you. Maybe if you did if you did 2 months twice, the validation program will let you know whether there are errors in your calendar. I can show you how to do that real quick. So we have saved our calendar. So actually, when you save a calendar and you want to close it, Oracle will, when you first enter it, Oracle will ask you whether you want to validate it. So do you want to validate the currently displayed calendar? Say current. If you do all, it will validate all the calendars in the system, and you don't want to do that. So current, and a request has been sent to the system to do validation to check whether there are any errors, and we can check the output of that validation. And how do you do that? You go to view, request. If you have the request ID, when we said yes to accept validation, there was a request ID that popped up to show the number of that validation request in the system. If you have it, you can come here and say specific request and input that ID. But unfortunately, I did not take that ID number, so I'm just going to do all requests and find. So this is what we call the SRS screen, the standard request screen. Anything that needs validation has a request number, and the process is shown here. If everything is okay, you have this status. It tells you what the request was. So here it was calendar validation, what we just did. Tells you whether it's been completed or whether it's pending, and then whether it's been suspended or something like that, or it's been cancelled or it's on hold. Here we have status. You can have normal, you can have a warning, or you can have an error. So if our calendar had an error, you would have seen here written error with highlighted in red. So as you can see, our calendar didn't have any problems, and it's been validated and it's ready for use. So this is called the SRS screen, and we're going to be looking at it much more often as we continue into our lessons. Okay, and actually some of these are all the requests that we have done as we were creating the chart of accounts and the currencies and all that. The request that needs to be validated so that the system can check that everything has been done correctly and data that has been entered is correct. Okay, so that's our calendar. We've only entered 1 year, but don't worry about that. We have 12 periods to work with. So let's go back to our slides. So we have done this. We have created the accounting calendar. We have enabled the currencies, and we have created a chart of accounts, right? So just a few more notes about the calendar. Sometimes when you're implementing a Oracle Financials project, what the company is doing is it's leaving another ERP, another resource, enterprise resource. Bob, remind me, the name escapes me. What does ERP stand for?
Enterprise resource planning.
Yes, enterprise resource planning. Enterprise resource planning
Tool.
system. Yeah, tool.
Yeah.
So maybe they were using the other ones are like SAP. You have QuickBooks and stuff like that. So if they are coming from one system to Oracle, they will have data because the company has existed before that. So you might have to create periods, backdated periods. So we're in 2018, but they have data from 2017, from 2016. For your calendar, you might have to create periods for those years so that data can be imported and reflect those years that the data was entered for. That system, the old system that you're leaving, is usually called the legacy system. And also about the calendar, we have different statuses of periods. A period can be open. That means you can enter journals in that period. You can enter journals, you can save them, and you can post them when in an open period. In a closed period, you can't do anything in a closed period. Once you post journals, you can't delete them, you can't enter journals in a closed period. So once you close a period, that's it. And then we have future enterable period. In a future enterable period, and we're going to see that in a moment once we go to a ledger, creating a ledger, you can enter a journal and you can save it, but you can't post it. You can't post the journal. Remember we said for accounting information in the journal to affect the account balances in the ledger, you have to post the journal. So you can enter a journal and save it, but you can't post it. Before you post it, the balances won't be affected. The balances in the ledger won't be affected. So that's how a future enterable period works. You can enter a journal in that period. Say you're in April and May is future enterable. You can enter a journal that's dated a day in May, but you'll save it, but you can't post that journal.
Okay, let me clarify one more thing back to the period statuses. When you close the closed period status, that period you can actually open it again, all right? There's also another period status called permanently closed, which means you can't really go back and open that period. Just want to make a little bit of clarification for everyone.
Okay. So we have open, closed, and permanently closed.
Closed, correct. Yes, and then future enterable.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification. All right. So here's our progress so far. We have created or enabled 3 Cs. So we have the 3 Cs: the currency, the chart of accounts, and the calendar. Remember, we had one more C, which is the subledger accounting method. We will see where we select that as we create our ledger. When you're creating our ledger, we are going to have to define a few options, which is the number of future enterable periods, as we have explained what future enterable periods are in the previous slide. We are going to tell the system what the first open period is, and we are going to specify the retained earning accounts. And when we're discussing the retained earning accounts, we're going to go back to the concept of dynamic insertion that we mentioned when we were creating the chart of accounts. So let's go straight to the system. The navigation is right here: setup, financials, accounting setup manager, accounting setup, then create accounting setup. So setup, financials, accounting setup manager, accounting setup. So this page actually launches in a web-based kind of page, HTML, unlike the other pages we've been using. The windows are Java-based, so that's the difference between this page and the others. But yeah, not really much difference. I mean, functionality-wise, if I would say that. Just that appearance, it launches like a normal web-based window. So to create a ledger, these are the steps. Actually, they are listed over here. We create the accounting structure, then we define the accounting options, and then we complete the accounting setup. So our first step, we are going to create the accounting setup right here. Select this button. Here we have an option to create a legal entity. This is a concept that we are going to cover later in the videos. We can still create a ledger without defining a legal entity, and we're not going to do that right now. And we are going to cover this in future videos where we're going to explain what a legal entity is and how it affects the Oracle financial setup. So just put that in the back of your mind for now. So we are going to skip this step and we're going to click next. So this is where we start creating our primary ledger, right? So remember I told you with the 4 C's, you can create a primary ledger with the chart of accounts, with the currency, and with the calendar, and the sub-ledger accounting method. You can create a primary ledger. That statement is represented right here. So you see, this header is primary ledger, okay? You have to give the ledger a name. You have to define the chart of accounts that you're going to use. You have to select the chart of accounts you're going to use. You have to select the accounting calendar. You have to select the currency. This is a functional currency. And you have to select the sub-ledger accounting method. So that statement with 4 C's, you can create a primary ledger, is represented in this page. So primary ledger is going to be called Maskani Group US ledger. Maskani Group US ledger. Our chart of accounts, as you can remember, we called it Maskani Group COA. Select this. Here's our chart of accounts. So select the radio button and select that. Our accounting calendar, we call it Maskani Group. Select Maskani Group, shows the calendar and the period type. Our functional currency, which is enabled, is going to be USD. We have enabled other currencies, but our ledger has one functional currency. All the other currencies are foreign currencies, which have to be converted to the functional currency using exchange rates if data is entered in those foreign currencies. Okay. Sub-ledger accounting method, we are going to use the standard accrual right there. Standard accrual, remember we have cash and accrual. So we have standard accrual. We are going to use this one that has been defined already by Oracle.
Okay, just a clarification. One thing that you will notice is that we are using Maskani, in pretty much every setup that we are doing. It's basically because that's our naming convention, all right, and it makes life easy as far as your setups are concerned. So as a student or the person who is watching this video, you need to have a consistent naming convention so that your setup, they are good. So that's why you can see we are using everything Maskani, because that's our enterprise. We need to have that naming convention throughout on every step that we do. And also when you're doing an implementation to the client, they're gonna have similar naming convention, and usually it's based on the name of the company, right? If it's Bank of America, it's gonna be like Bank of America chart of account. If it's let's say for example Safaricom, it's gonna be Safaricom chart of accounts, like that. So just something that I wanted to clarify for everyone.
Yeah. It also makes life easier when you're querying, because sometimes, like in this instance that we are using, is you can have many users that are using the instance, and if they have similar names for the different features, like the month. You saw, like when you're looking at the period types, you had a lot of period types called month, so you never know which one is yours or the one that you want to use. So yeah. Okay, so once you've done that, you can click next. You can ignore this. We are going to discuss this in future lessons. These are other types of ledgers. Remember, I told you have primary ledger, we have reporting currency ledgers, we have secondary ledgers. So these are also things that you can define. But right now, we are dealing with a primary ledger, and you're going to understand later how these reporting currency ledgers and secondary ledgers interact with the primary ledger. But for now, they won't affect the functionality of a primary ledger. So we're just going to click next. All right. So you see this warning here: carefully review your accounting structure, and once saved, you will be unable to change your primary changes. So you have to be sure that this is the name you want to use, this is the functional currency that you want to use, this is the chart of accounts that you want to use, and this is the calendar and the subledger accounting method. Okay, because once you finish here, you won't be able to change this. To create a primary ledger, you have to start all over again. You can't change this. But we are sure this is what we want. We are sure this is what we want to use. So we can click finish. And here you have saved the accounting structure, Maskani Group, US Ledger. But we are not yet done with the setup of the ledger in a way that we can use it. There's still some more steps. This is, we remember in the slide, I told you we have to do define ledger options. And that is going to be the next steps. We already created 3 Cs and we have associated them with that ledger. Then the next thing is going to be to define these ledger options to complete the creation of our primary ledger. Okay, so let's go back to the. So to do that, you go select this button here, define accounting options. Brings up this page. First header is legal entities. We didn't define any legal entities, so you can ignore that. Then you have primary ledger, and these are the options that you have under primary ledger. Again, you have ledger options for your primary ledger. You have reporting currencies, which deals with reporting currency ledgers, which we're not going to deal with right now. Down here, you have an option for secondary ledgers, which we're also not going to deal with right now. So to define those other options for primary ledger, we select this update button. Okay. All right. So this error usually comes up most of the times when you're doing the fact definition, and it doesn't allow you to complete the definition of the extra ledger options that you need to create your ledger. And when you read the error, it says the second line, the key Flexfield with the application name general ledger, accounting Flexfield, and structure Maskani Group COA is not compiled. So it's not an error that should worry you. All you need to do is Go back to your chart of account structures. Remember the navigation, setup, financials, Flexfield, key segments. Okay. Remember, this is the window we use to create a chart of account structure. Remember, you said the application is general ledger, and it's even telling you in the error, right? I'll show you that. The error here, it's telling you the key flex field with application name general ledger and accounting flex field and structure mechanic group is not compiled. So what you need to do is compile this structure mechanic group COA that is contained in this accounting flex field that belongs to this application. So that's what we are going to do. All right. So let's go back here. So general ledger, find, okay. So application is general ledger. This is the accounting flex field, okay. This is where we created our chart of account structure. You can click inside here and find. Just type in and it comes up. So what you need to do is press this compile button. I mean, it did this the first time when we saved it, but you have to do it again to get rid of that error. So compile, compiling Flexfield definition. Okay, okay. And that request has been sent to the concurrent manager, which we can see using the SRS screen that I told you, standard request screen. So this is the okay. So this request here, as we have said, is the one that we have just made to compile the Flexfield structure, that the Flexfield that contains our chart of account structure. And you can see, as I told you, when you have an error, it is highlighted in red. And this is the error that we saw when we were doing the accounting setup, and we needed to recompile our chart of account structure. So a request was sent once we submitted the request to. This is what we did. We came here and then we encountered an error. A request had been sent to compile to come to this page, but we could not do that because it said that the chart of account structures had not been compiled, and we could not enter data in this page. But we have recompiled, and now, as you can see, we are able to proceed, and you can see that we have step 1 of 4. So this is the first page. Once you let me go back. Remember, we came to this page: primary ledger, mechanic group, US ledger. You have the steps that you can use to perform different functions. This is what we want to do: to update our primary ledger. So once you click that update button, it brings you to this page. You have our ledger name already. We have the short name for the ledger, system generated, and description. We can use the ledger name as a description. See, we already selected the currency that we functional currency. We already selected the mechanic group of accounts. We cannot change this. This is already selected for us. If we want to change this, we have to create another accounting structure or another ledger. The second part is accounting calendar. We already selected that too. Our accounting calendar is mechanic group. Period type is mechanic month, which is basically a month. First ever open period, we're going to use January 2018. Number of future enterable periods. You can select here. You can have 1. You can have, I think you can, I forget how many are the maximum you can have. But we are going to use 1. If Robert, you can clarify that.
Yeah, we can have 1 for now.
We can have
more than that, but let's have 1.
We're going to use 1. And then the sub-ledger accounting method, we're going to use the standard accrual. We have other options like the language and all that, which are, I would say, obvious or already pre-selected for us. Okay, let's go to the next page. Retained earnings account. So at the end of the year, we have something that's called year-end closing. All the revenue accounts and the expense accounts are closed into the retained earnings account, and that way the retained earning account will show like how much money the company has made during that year. So when you close the revenue and expenses, revenue minus expenses equals to profit, it will show the net amount of money that has been generated by the company. So in order to define a ledger, we have to, this is a required option. This is a required option to identify the retained earnings account. Okay. So this is an account combination, which is going to be, you're going to enter company 01. Our retained earnings account, when we're defining, we enter the values in the account value set, was 003,000. You can see the segments right here. Okay. Our division, the first division, we're going to use the first division. It was 100. The service line, we'll use the first one, which was 10. Program, we're going to use the default. Remember, this is the one that had the graduates and all that. Okay, so let's start. Future.
I don't think we put the values for that yet, so we have to.
Oh, we didn't
have to put the default. Yes.
Oh, we have to put the default. Okay. It's oversight on my end. So let's go quickly to setup, financials, Flexfield, key. Let's go to values. Structure, let's use Maskani. Let's use future one. Okay, fine. So let's enter one value, which is 00 default. See, this is another request that has been submitted. And you see, if you go to the SRS screen, you'll see it. Don't know, I went back there. Moscani segment future 2. And set our default value 00. Put that as default. Let's see. Okay. Let's see other. So you can see the different fields. We have pending, status, standby. You can refresh this. Yeah, so you refresh and it has been completed and it's normal. So now we can use the values in the future segments to enter our retained earnings account, the accounting setup. Okay, so let's go back there. I don't know whether we're going to be able to select here or so let's enter 00. Yeah, so you can select 00 And for future 2 also, we can select 0, 0. All right, select. Search. Okay, I don't know why. All right, so we defined the 2 segments where we had not put we put values in the 2 segments where we had forgot to enter in the future 1 and the future 2. So now we can enter the retained earnings account, to retained earnings account combination. Okay, so for the company, you can select that search option there. Click on Go. It will bring you all the values in that under that segment. Let's use the Mascani developers. For the account, we can do the same thing. Go. Let's select our retained earnings account. Okay, which is the only one we should select anyway. So division. Select Go. Let's use the first one. Industrial plant. Service line. Go. Let's use the first one, operations. Program. Let's use default. Don't want to use any of these other values because they don't reflect the nature of the business of the companies that we are using. Future. Click on Go. Search brings up the default value. Select and do the same for future 2. Okay. Select. After you've done that, click on this Create button, and you have the account combination right here with all the values that you selected. All right. So select that account combination. Click on Select. Now, where does the concept of dynamic insertion come up? If we had not allowed dynamic insertion, we would have had to go to the combinations table, which is a concept that we'll discuss, and pre-validate this as a valid combination. Okay, but because we enable dynamic insertion, once we clicked that Create button when we were entering these account values, Oracle automatically validated it as a valid account from the values that we have entered in the different value sets, and it accepted this as our retained earnings account, even though we have not entered any journals in our ledger, but it still validated it because these values come from the value sets that are associated with this ledger, and we have selected dynamic insertion. So if we had not selected dynamic insertion and then we came to enter this retained earnings account, we would have got an error because we would have had to predefine this as a valid account combination. So that's where the issue of dynamic insertion comes in. And even if you have not understood it right now, we are going to cover it as a separate topic. So don't worry. But that's just an explanation of how it affects the creation of a journal at this point, of a ledger at this point. So we also have other options that we're not going to deal with right now. We are going to look at them later. Suspense account, rounding differences, tracking account. These are also accounts that you can define. Journal reversal criteria. We are going to deal with reversing journals and automatic reversals and semi-automatic. So we are going to look at these topics later, but they're not mandatory at the moment to create our primary ledger. It's the same for the currency translation options. So you can sort of ignore them for now. So let's go to next. None of these options here also are mandatory. And so we can go to the next option also. And this is like a review page where you can check the options that you have selected. So this is the standard information, the name, the description, the currency, and the chart of accounts, the calendar, subledger, accounting options. So the 4 C's are covered right here, right? The currency, the calendar, the chart of accounts, and the subledger accounting. So those are mandatory. You have to select those, and those are covered here. Have additional information. We have the retained earnings, which is also mandatory. We have entered a retained earnings account. These others are optional, or we are going to define them as need arises as we continue deeper into the lessons. But we look good for now, and we can click on this finish button to finish creating our primary ledger. And so now we have our primary ledger. If you look at this tick right here, status, this tick right here under the status header, it means that this is complete. So our ledger is ready to use, Maskani Group Ledger. If you want to make any changes, you can just come here to the update button and you can make any changes that you are allowed to make. Okay, so let's click cancel. Okay, let's go back to our slides for a moment. So we have created stroke enabled the 4 C's. So this slide, which is going to be our last slide today, it shows the periodic cycle of the general ledger. So it shows how information, I would say, is managed in the general ledger, or how it goes into the ledger and how it ends up as a financial reports, because we said the financial reports are the main purpose where we are the main purpose for the general ledger module. So to enter information in a general ledger, you have to open periods. Remember, we discussed the different statuses of periods. We have open periods, we have permanently closed, we have closed and future enterable. So you can't enter data in a period if it's not open. So once we start entering journals in our ledger that we have created, the first thing we need to do is to open the first period, okay? After we open the period, then you can import or enter journals directly. So we are going to start by entering journals directly into GL. Remember, we have the option of importing journals from the sub ledgers, the account receivables, account payables, but we are now doing general ledger, so we are not going to deal with those. So we are going to be entering journals directly into GL. Once you import those journals, what do? You post them once you have approved them. You know, some journals, maybe they are not correct and they need to be deleted. So you have to do that first before you post, because once you post, you can't delete. The only thing you can do is reverse, but the record remains. All right, so you import journals, you review and approve them, you post the ones that have been approved, and then you can actually run intermediate reports in between here, just to track information before running the period closing financial reports, like the income statements. And there are other processes that also go in between here, but we are going to discuss them later. So you post journals, you close the period, and then you can run the financial reports for that period, for that specific period, or from the time the company started entering data. I mean, from the time the company was started up to that period. Okay, so that is That is the periodic cycle of the general ledger. Let's go back to where we were creating our ledger. So we have created our ledger. There's actually one more step that we need to do. The status here shows everything has been complete for our Mascani Group US ledger, but we still have to click on this complete button. All right. So once you do that, you get this warning. You are about to complete your accounting setup. This will save the setup options and it will prevent deletion of components such as legal entities, balancing segment values, and reporting currencies. We haven't defined any of those at the moment, but it shows you the permanence of completing your accounting setup. Once you complete it, there are a lot of things that you cannot change. And if you want to change that, you might have to implement a new primary ledger. But I think we are confident with what we have done, and that is what we need. So we are going to click yes. And you get this confirmation, and a request has been sent for validation of the setups that you have just done. Let's copy this request number and go to the SRS screen. You can come here and do submit new request. No, sorry. View.
Actually, yeah.
Request.
Sorry, yeah.
And then specific request, and put in the request ID over here. Okay, and click on find. So that's the request ID to validate our ledger setup. The name is General Ledger Accounting Setup. It's been completed. It's normal, so everything seems correct. And fine, we don't have any errors. You can also use these buttons to see more information. If you click on the View Output button, well, this has no output because it was just validating that the setups are correct. But when you click the log here, you see all the programming logic that Oracle has done to ensure that our setups are correct. Anyway, that's not very important for us, very technical. So, going back to our slides. We have created our primary ledger using the 4 C's. We have defined the ledger options. So our primary ledger is now ready for use. In order to use the primary ledger, we are going to have to cover a topic called responsibility, which we are going to cover in the next lesson. But just as a primer, I need to know that a responsibility is the role that a user assumes when you log in. Remember, the responsibility that we used when we were creating our ledger was General Ledger Super User. We can go back to that. Where is it? Right here. We use the General Ledger Super User responsibility to create our ledger. All right, so this General Ledger Super User responsibility has access to a certain journal. All right, to a certain ledger, sorry. It has access to a certain ledger. So we are going to create our own responsibility that we are going to use to access the Mascani Group US ledger that we have created. So for instance, this General Ledger Super User, let's see the ledger that it has access to. This is how we are going to do it. This is how you enter a journal. When you click enter, it launches a page like this. You select here new journal. So under this General Ledger super user responsibility, this is the ledger that you can post in. Okay, BJ primary ledger. Once we create our own responsibility, and this option right here, ledger, is going to show Mascani Group US ledger, and that is the ledger where we can enter information. All right, and we can also see the effect of the other forces here, of the other forces, of the forces, sorry. So period, here is where you select the period you want to enter the journal in, and you can only enter a journal in an open period. All right, so if this January 2019 is open, then you can enter a journal. Here you have a currency. You will have a list of all the enabled currencies. So here are the currencies we enabled. All right, because we are using this the user that I'm using at the moment, then we can see the currencies that we enabled when we are creating when we were creating our primary ledger. So when you enter a journal, if you enter it in your functional currency, which is USD, then you don't need to do any conversion. But say you select Canadian dollar or Kenya shilling. All right, let's say you're entering in Kenya shillings, then you have to select an exchange rate. All right, and here we have rate types, which we're also going to discuss. You can select user and then identify the exchange rate. So you can say maybe 1 Kenya shilling is equals to 0.0 something US dollars. And once you do that, it's reflected in the journal lines. All right. So the amount is going to be entered in Kenya shillings, and you can see here entered, but it's going to be converted using the rate that you provide into the functional currency, which is USD. So this is the amount that is accounted. All right. Okay, sorry, let me change this back to the US dollar so that I don't have to enter any rate. This is a descriptive Flexfield. We're going to cover that too much later. So let's see how the chart of accounts affects. So we can enter a journal line. So the first line, remember this is not our ledger, this is just an example. So the chart of accounts is going to be different, but I just want to show you how the chart of accounts affects how we capture information. So the line sequence, you can use whatever you want, 1 or 2, 10, 20. When you go to account, you have this list option. So this guy, his chart of accounts has 3 segments: company, his account, and his department. Okay, so if this was we were using our ledger, we would have 7 segments: company, account, division, what was the other one? Service line, program, future 1, future 2. Okay, and you select. So he has, these are the companies that he has. He has manufacturing, he has software. So let's select manufacturing. Okay. Let's say he's buying, let's use the computer account. And let's see what departments he has. Head office. Okay. Okay, so you see how the chart of accounts affects. This is how the combinations come out. All right. So if we had our own, we were entering journals in our own ledger, we would have account, we would have company, then account, then division, then we would have another value for service line, then program. So our account combination would be much longer than this. Then here is where you enter the actual amount. So maybe debit, when you debit an asset, which computers is an asset, you're increasing it. So maybe you bought computers worth $100, then you have to add another line to balance this debit. So maybe he paid for these computers in cash, right? So 01, let's see what his cash account is. It might be different from ours. Might not be 1,000. So it's 1,000, okay? and let's do the same department, head office. Okay. So you bought computers worth $100 in cash. 100. So a journal can have two or more lines. So maybe he paid cash 100, and then he paid cash 50, and then he promised to pay the other 50. So here you would hit the accounts payable, but the debit side and the credit side, the total has to be 100, 100. Okay, so that's just how the forces affect how we capture information. And you can save this journal or you can post it. Once you select this post option, it affects the account balances in the ledger. But if you just save it, it is stored as a record which you can later come and review and then post if it is correct. Okay. So I don't want to go too deep into all this journal entry and capturing information. I just wanted to show you how the forces that we have defined affect the user. This is what accountants do. They enter this information. Your work as a financial consultant is just to define the options that enable them to set up the options that enable them to do this job. Okay, and I think unless Robert has anything to add at this point, this will be a good part to end our lesson today.
I think we are good. Thank you.
So, thank you.
In the next class.